What's going on, folks? Carlos Benitez back here again. Second episode of my dog's place. And I wanted to do, it's kind of late here, so forgive the tired voice, but I had some situations today happen where, it made me think a lot about engagement. So I wanted to talk today about a little bit of engagement and what that means with dogs and my understanding so far of engagement. So it's one of the biggest things, biggest struggles that I found when training, getting to the point where the dog is engaged with you. It's sometimes it can be challenging. There are dogs who aren't very motivated, and that leads dogs to have very particular interests, and a good dog trainer knows how to bring out or knows how to make the dog show these things, right? Many times it's breed related, what the drivers are, what the motivators are, but sometimes you have to get a little bit, you have to improvise a bit. I've had a Cane Corso puppy before that would only really engage with me, full on attention, when I would bring out the water hose. And I remember I brought this up to the owners, and they mentioned that, since she was a puppy, the daughter used to play with her using the hose. So, that's not necessarily something, that a Cane Corso would necessarily be into, but conditioning of this and, just reinforcement of this game, made it so that this Cane Corso would go crazy over, the hose. You put it like on the jet setting, and she just goes crazy, right? But it's really about finding what your dog likes to do. That could be challenging, as I mentioned. You really have to take the time to know your dog, to really just realize, like, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are the things that trip them out, where are they the most confident. A lot of these things play a role into engagement. But for example, I just had Luffy out. Luffy, come here, buddy. Down. Good boy. So I just had Luffy out, and I had stepped out tonight for dinner, and I left him out. I left him out on the yard, as I do a lot of the times. But his engagement, which is interesting, this is also another indicator of engagement. But when I leave, Luffy is very attentive to the gate. We have a yard where, you have to pull out of. It's sort of a farm. And this guy is very hyper-focused on the gate, waiting for me to get back. And the reason for that is because I've spent a lot of time building a lot of value behind interacting with me. So his thing is he loves to fetch. So for example, I had him out, and I'm playing fetch with him, and I realized that making the game slightly easier for him, but let me say it like this: making the game extremely easy for him was probably the most important part of teaching him how to play fetch. I would say that this is kind of the pinnacle of teaching a dog how to play a game, right? You have to start you have to start the game on easy mode. But then, I noticed today that as I was challenging Luffy a little bit more in the game, making him do different things to get the reward, which is me throwing the ball, which is the ball, I guess you could say. uh, he started working harder. And it made me realize the importance of engagement and what that really means, right? You want to make sure that your dog thinks that you're the funnest person in the world, that really makes all the difference. Um, a lot of dogs sometimes struggle with food, and me personally, I've actually recently fixed uh, a, a little challenge that I had with my other dog Pachi, where he wouldn't really eat his food, and through building engagement with him and making a game out of him getting his food, he he started eating his food with more vigor and more excitement. They had to work for it. And, the same way how, some of us like to be challenged, it's interesting how dogs like to be challenged, but as well, right? When their confidence is at a certain height. So that's why I say at the beginning, we might want to start with the game on easy mode. But as the dog starts understanding the concept of these games or whatever new thing that we're teaching them, we do want to make it a little harder to keep challenging the dog. Failure for the dog, or for example, I don't produce the ball for Luffy. That's essentially a correction. For some dogs, for some other dogs, it's more of a correction than others, depending on how driven and how much how driven they are towards the ball. But this could be essentially a correction, right? We would call this negative punishment, right? Where I'm removing this thing that he wants. So I'm removing this ball, and he gets hurt by it, right? It's a I remember another dog trainer was speaking about this, but how they did a test, and it proved that dogs don't take a leash correction. Some dogs, and I will say some because I don't know the facts of the study off the top of my head, but some dogs take pressure or a correction off of a leash less harshly than they do if you don't present them with a bite. If they're, a PSA dog or a sports dog, or with the ball if they love to fetch, or with a tug toy, or with, sometimes food for that matter, right? Removing something of valuable removing something that the dog finds valuable is a form of a correction, and that sometimes drives the dogs more. If you have a dog built up to a certain point, then it'll make them want it more. But going back to making it on easy mode, if the dog's maybe confidence is low, or they're not really driven towards what it is that you're withholding, then they're not really going to care too much, right? And it's going to actually be counterproductive, because now you're making something that they really don't want even that much harder to get. So, thing to keep in mind, right? Like when you're first starting off, play the game on easy mode and don't be too hard on your dog. I also use, these games that I've taught my dogs as training experiences. I can ask them to do sit down, and this actually is a good, probably, opportunity to mention this, but, when I first started, I remember it was very simple routine. Sit, give reward. Sit, give reward. Sit, wait a little bit, then give a reward. Then sit, wait a little bit, and get a reward. Then I upped it to sit, I'm going to walk a couple steps, then it was a couple feet, then I'm going to walk across the street. Then, I started making it harder and harder, and, as you challenge the dog, this is a form of mental stimulation, guys. So when we talk about stimulating our dogs and getting our dogs active, we're kind of, when you think about it, playing and training hits both of those. You have your dog that's being active physically, but you're also making them think. And in some cases, you can interswap the two. right? You don't always have to make it a training situation. You could just go out and play fetch with your dog. But if you ever choose to maybe do some training while you have the ball, because you know your dog is driven by the ball and is willing to work for the ball, then that's also a good way to train. You don't always have to use food, or treats for that matter. Now, Luffy, come. Luffy, hey, Luffy, Luffy, come. Come on. Down. And again, he's tired. It's a good, another good opportunity to kind of mention, a little bit of accountability, right? To be truthful, it's my fault. I put him in a down earlier, and he should stay in the down until I give him his release cue. I'm recording this video, and I missed it. I missed the timing. By the time I caught it and kind of realized it, he was already on the other side, down on the other side of the camper, and he just plopped down already. So I got to call him, and I got to make him come back. And I have to be quite persistent, right? And it's not that I have to be because I want to prove anything. It's just I want to reduce the amount of times that my dog thinks that they can blow me off for certain things, right? You got to have follow through. And I remember, a close friend really made me realize that, and it's been, since I got a second dog, it's actually been even more so, no, down. It's been one of the things that I've been that I've learned about a lot, in the last few months even, just since I got my dog obviously, but you just have to have follow through. You have to make, when you say no or stop that or cut it out, you want to make sure it means something, Engagement could be like it's completely off topic, but it is a sort of what you need, like a foundation that you would need to be able to hold the dog accountable, right? You need to get engagement first so you can teach a dog a behavior that you want. And then once they understand it fully, then you can start holding them accountable for it. So in this situation, I know Luffy knows he's down, and I know he knows that he's not supposed to get up unless I give him a release marker. So he just tried to get up twice. Now he's tired, I understand, but I have to have follow through, and I have to make that consistent. That's how you build reliability with your dog. When, those times where your dog thinks that they can blow you off, and they can't. There's just, you can use the long line for things like this, but anywho, engagement is needed to get to this level of control and understanding over your dog, over your dog and of your dog. But it makes learning a lot easier for them, when you do have engagement. And that's the other side of this, right? We build engagement first so that they can learn as efficiently as possible, right? It's like back when I was in high school, if somebody would have told me, hey man, I'll give you $10 for every A you get, that would have been some good motivation, I remember Krispy Kreme had a promotion one year when I was young. Every A that you got a like one free donut or something like that. You got a dozen donuts. I think it was like if you had 5 A's, if you had straight A's, you would get. That was an incentive for me. I worked pretty hard that year, that semester. I really wanted those donuts. And it's the same thing, right? Like, if you were to give students, I don't know, free access to video games when they get home, as long as they get A's, or you buy them every game that they want, if they get straight A's, I mean, maybe that would be an incentive. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of kids that would put a little bit more effort, right? But it's a double-edged sword in the sense where you have to have a good routine of give and take, right? You can't just give. There has to be some sort of accountability. And I don't have kids, but at least as dogs are concerned, you know, yeah, it's only reward based is the first part. Then you have to get into a little bit of accountability if you want your dog reliable in these other places. But all these things, at the end of the day, you know, you are correcting your dog, so you're putting some sort of pressure on your dog. You need to build engagement so that the dog thinks you're fun, and then they'll trust you. You start building a bond with them. Then you can start holding them accountable. But, you know, again, this is a foundation piece. And, you know, it also makes it easier to exercise them, you know, when you have good engagement. I think when, good example, when I first adopted Luffy, he barked a lot, you know, he was very noisy. And it wasn't until maybe like the last month or two, and I've had him for almost a year now. I remember it had to be like 2, 3 weeks ago, but like it was a couple months ago where I started leaving him outside, and more and more, right? And like I said, you know, he started to just kind of hang out by the gate, but I think there was a bond built between me and Luf to the point where he knew that I was coming back. And maybe he picked up that sense of abandonment from, you know, the shelter, but it was one of the things that I had to work through. And I was through getting strong engagement with Luf and being able to teach him things a lot easier because his drive was so high towards what I offer, and essentially he just likes to interact with me in general, because I could do it with food and toys, but his willingness to do stuff is so, you know, high that I can exercise him easier, and that exercise, that extra running around, and you know, he doesn't mind waiting in the crate anymore, and he's been silent in the crate. He doesn't bark like that. If he gets spooked, he barks. But barking because he wants out, because he just wants to get out, I'm past that now. We're getting past that. He trusts that I'm going to come back and give him a fun session. Doesn't know what it's going to be, but he knows it might be something fun. And sometimes I bring in new things, and he's just loving it. He's having a lot of fun, and that builds this bond where it's just like, okay, I know Carlos is coming back, so I don't care how long he waits. I don't care how long I have to wait here. This is nothing to me. And again, using bone marrows and building value around the crate itself is really important as well. Like, I'm not gonna say that I didn't do that. That's the other side of it. But again, none of that stuff would be possible without high engagement. And you know, I was through more exercise, through being able to provide more exercise for him, through finding a good game that he liked, I was able to get rid of the barking in the crate. I was able to crate train my 1.5-year-old dog. And it was a really interesting process, because I really had to consider what are the aspects of the breed, of the different breeds that he's made up of. What aspects of those breeds did he get more of? You know, like which is he more Rottweiler dominant? Is he Bully or Lab? This was an interesting time to kind of see that, because I was able to present a lot of different things, and of course, you know, his engagement towards certain things are higher than they are towards others, but he just likes to be outside. He just tapped into like his guardian side. It might come from the Rottweiler, maybe a little bit of the American Bully, who knows, but it just worked out for me. And giving him more of an outside life and giving him more, freedom, structured freedom, giving him more structured freedom, I was able to crate train him, and now he doesn't mind being in the crate. But all that was a result of exercising him a lot, and then I've been able to tone it down little by little to now where kind of do a little bit of exercise here and there, but I can get away with not exercising him every single time we go out, based on what his lifestyle entails nowadays. Now I'm a dog trainer. Obviously, I have certain resources that allow me to, let my dog run around on the field all day, every day. But that's to say, there's a lot of empty, grassy areas that you could take a long line, clip it on your dog, and take your dog out there and let him run around, and practice these certain things. It's there's definitely a lot of ways that you could work around this, right? There's a lot of ways that if you get creative, again, you can make use of this the same way that I did, regardless of, whether you live in an apartment, or what have you, to a certain extent, obviously. But a lot of the things that I did, I trialed and errored it. So there's, again, a lot of aspects of, for example, letting him out, and kind of just roam the land may have played a bit of a role, but I think what played a bigger role was the amount of exercise that he was getting. And I'm able to exercise him a lot, because there's sometimes now, for example, like I said, I leave him in the crate for a few hours, and he doesn't bark anymore. And I could get away with just a little bit of exercise now, but it's about finding the right way to exercise your dog and the right way of getting them tired. And for that, you need to have engagement so you can figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. That's just that activity, just that activity just tires them out, which leads to you being able to have a very behaved dog. Tired dogs are well-behaved dogs. Someone wise once said that. No, down. But yeah, guys, that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to follow, comment, and subscribe. But follow as well TikTok at my dog Carl, Instagram at my dog Carl. And let me know, guys, any questions you guys have. Let me know in the comments. Anything you got, any questions, any ideas, for things that you would like a video on. Let me know. I'd be more than welcome to oblige. And if you guys need any help training dogs, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or whatever. I'd love to help you and your dog. That being said, guys, have a good night. Appreciate you tuning in, and see you guys next time.